My name is Kelley Grimes, and I am the Director of Community Engagement for Leap to Success, and I am so happy that you are with us today. I want to invite all of us just to take a pause for a moment and take a deep breath. We started this series because we know how stressful things are for so many right now. And we wanted to offer moments of mindfulness and practical tools to really deeply nurture ourselves during this uncertain time. We have been so grateful to have an opportunity to share. I think this is our 8th episode. And normally, my co-host, Dana Bristol-Smith, who is our executive director, is here with us, but she is modeling beautiful self-care today and is taking care of herself. And so I am going to be your host today. The series has been an opportunity to invite our community partners and just folks out in the community to prioritize caring for themselves and nurturing themselves so that they can be filled up and take that love and kindness out into the world. I'm very grateful to have Alyssa, who is our co-pilot and takes care of all our technology. And so Alyssa, would you introduce yourself and share any tips with us about how we can navigate Zoom today?
Hi, everyone. So happy that you're here with us on our 8th webinar for self-care in stressful times. A couple things before we get started. If you've missed any of our previous episodes, we do have them available on our YouTube channel as well as our website. We've compiled a self-care virtual library of sorts if you would like to access any of those. This replay will be there as well. And this is going to be an interactive webinar today. We'll have some questions that you can share if you would like. We do ask that in order to make this more interactive with other participants, that before you submit your answers, you change your settings to all panelists and attendees before sending out your answers to the questions. That's all.
Thank you so much, Alyssa. So grateful for everything you bring to Leap to Success. So we are a women's empowerment organization, and our mission is to educate and empower women who are overcoming domestic violence, homelessness, and any other major life challenge to reach their greatest potential. We have had an opportunity to share many of the tools, and we will be sharing more of them today. We're looking at letting go of perfectionism. You know, perfectionism is something that's been woven very deeply into how many of us have learned to show up in the world, and yet it is the #1 thing that creates stress and really moves us away from feeling confident into a place where we are comparing ourselves and trying to reach some unrealistic standard, instead of embracing the beauty of who we are and all that we have to share with the world. So I'm going to invite us for a moment to pause. We have a special guest with us today, Marsha Jehn. She is a beautiful musician, and she is going to share a song today, and I'm actually going to invite you to use it as your mindfulness practice. So if you can, just settle into where you're sitting, take a deep breath, close your eyes, and enjoy Marsha's beautiful music.
You're beautiful, love yourself, you're beautiful, embrace yourself, you're beautiful, accept yourself, you're beautiful, forgive yourself. You're beautiful. Love yourself. You're beautiful. Embrace yourself. You're beautiful. Accept yourself. You're beautiful. Forgive yourself. So beautiful, so beautiful. You're beautiful. Love yourself. You're beautiful. Embrace yourself. You're beautiful. Accept yourself. You're beautiful. Forgive yourself. So beautiful. So beautiful. So
Thank you so much, Marsha. That was so beautiful. I hope you could breathe into that. Breathe into those beautiful affirmations, those beautiful reminders to accept yourself, to see the totality of your beauty. It's in the complexity of who we are as human beings that really creates our beauty. So thank you so much, Marsha, for sharing that. I'm really grateful that Marsha and Dana have been creating a peaceful pause for Thursdays with meditation and with Marsha's music, and just another way to care for and nurture yourself during these stressful times. So we hope that you will go to our YouTube channel or to our Facebook page and see that each Thursday that you'll have another beautiful offering. So I want to talk a little bit about perfectionism. Now, I don't know about you, but I definitely was taught that to be the best was to be perfect. And I think I bought into that. As a matter of fact, I remember one of my most disillusioning or disappointing experiences was finding out my mother wasn't perfect. You know, my dad had always told me how perfect my mom was. And when I found out she wasn't perfect, I was really mad at her. That she didn't live up to this standard that he promoted. And I think you might reflect and see if that's the standard that you are holding yourself up to. I know that lots of times we have these expectations, and the expectations actually show up in our to-do list. I don't know about you, but my to-do list can look so long you couldn't possibly complete it in one day. And yet, we can often have an expectation of ourselves to do that. The problem with having these really long to-do lists and having these expectations that we can never fully, meet, is that we see that as evidence that we're not good enough. And friends, that is just not true. trying to live up to some image of perfection, doing that in our families or in our communities and our organizations actually sets up for people to not be authentic and be themselves, right? It sets up for a lot of comparison. And then when we make a mistake, we actually think we are the mistake. Versus one of the things that we teach in our Leap to Confidence classes is the statement that I've made a mistake, but I'm not a mistake. I'm not the mistake. I made a mistake. When I can see that, I can understand what I can learn from the experience versus being stuck in a perspective that I criticize and judge and shame myself for not being perfect, which indeed none of us can be. So I want you to reflect on what kind of stress you experience. Whether it's, feeling badly you can't accomplish everything that you set out to, feeling that you should be this perfect, wife or partner or parent or employee. And when you don't reach that, you feel like you haven't accomplished anything. So think about it in your own life. If you've had an experience of perfectionism, really undermining your confidence and belief in yourself and causing more stress in your life, what has that been? Where is perfectionism causing more stress in your life right now? I would really be grateful if you could share that, because I know there'll be other people that are watching this webinar that can relate, and we know how important that is. So one person said, my to-do list. So perfection shows up causing more stress by probably having an extremely long to-do list. Another person said, my body weight. Oh my goodness, absolutely. Body image can be very impacted by this perfect view of what our body should be when, quite frankly, when we think about it, we all are unique. So of course our bodies would all be unique and not one specific thing. And that's what perfection does. It says that there's this one standard and it leaves all these other things out. Another person shared, keeping my house clean. So having that perspective that everything has to be perfect. Well, if you have kids, that'll be real difficult to maintain. If you have dogs or anything else, putting things in words. So feeling like you have to be perfect in how you say things and how you communicate absolutely can cause a lot of stress. Someone else shared, above all, trying to be a good mom while working from home and work. Oh my goodness, right? This whole balancing thing. When we have this sense of perfectionism that we have to be everything to everybody, it really leads us down a road of taking care of everyone else's needs before our own. It's really kind of not in alignment with caring for ourselves, because what we find is that we have to strive more and more and more to be perfect, when indeed perfection doesn't even exist. It's an illusion, right? There isn't a perfect. And so having an expectation, someone else said not making a mistake. Yeah, having an expectation we're not going to make a mistake. Well, I'm sorry, friends, but how boring. We would never learn anything. We hear from so many inspiring people that their failures they learned the most from and had an opportunity to pivot into something maybe that was even greater than they could have had as a possibility. Another person shared, being the best dad, having that pressure of feeling like I have to be the best dad or the best mom or the best friend or the best whatever. Also shared is house, family, taking care of things, and always feeling behind. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy that you shared that, because that sense that we are supposed to be accomplishing all the time and doing all these things, we see that a lot right now. Maybe you are looking at someone else's social media and they said, oh, I've had all this time and I've cleaned out all my closets and I've done all these things. And you're looking at your closets going, oh my gosh, they're still so filled with clutter. What have I done? So perfectionism really leads us to a whole lot of comparing ourselves, which we know is spiritual suicide. So finding another way of engaging with ourselves and letting go of perfectionism could be the most self-nurturing thing that you have ever done for yourself. So I want to invite you into a practice that we share in our Leap to Success community. And the practice is actually what we believe is the antidote to perfectionism, and that is acknowledging ourselves. Now that sounds simple, but I'll tell you, there's times that we'll use that as a prompt in an empowerment circle or other things and say, tell us something you acknowledge about yourself. And it's hard for people. And so I'm gonna invite you to stretch a little around that, but I want to give you some tools first to think about acknowledging yourself, and then I'm going to invite you to acknowledge yourself here today with us and share something that you acknowledge about yourself. So one thing that we know about acknowledging ourselves is that it really allows us to operate from our strengths, not from our deficits. So if we're looking at our to-do list and we were to, instead of just checking things off and moving on to the next thing, we were to pause for a moment and really acknowledge what it took to accomplish that, we could really shift out of feeling not good enough that we haven't accomplished as much and move into feeling really empowered and really even be able to celebrate, right, that we were able to accomplish that. So pausing during our checkoffs on our checklist to acknowledge ourselves is a really powerful practice, as is creating a done list. So instead of just having a to-do list, you have a done list. And at the end of the day, and this is a really good thing for some of the folks that were saying that they were having stress trying to balance work and home life. At the end of the day, as a way of differentiating work from now home life, to acknowledge what you have been able to accomplish in the day. And the fact about acknowledgments are actually permission to focus on what we have done well, not what we haven't. So acknowledging ourselves could be, hey, I made a mistake and I responded to myself with compassion. I was able to, get something done that I've been working on for days that I was able to complete today. So acknowledging ourselves can show up in very simple ways. Acknowledge that I drank the amount of water I wanted to drink today, or I took 5 minutes to go sit out in the sun between my Zoom calls today. Whatever acknowledgement can look like, it doesn't have to be some big grand thing. It can be the small things, and the small things add up. And as we're in a practice of acknowledging ourselves, we begin to build our confidence and our belief in ourselves. There is some really compelling research about resilience building. And one of the practices that's offered by Sheryl Sandberg, I believe, in option B about building resilience in life, she shares that having a practice of spending 10 minutes a day writing down what went well in your day and why can be a very powerful practice of building resilience. And what I love about that is it's both saying what went well, but why. When we ask ourselves, why did that go well? We're going to find that we were there all along, right? Because I created a, environment that I could focus today, because I reached out for help where I needed to, because I, was well rested and ate food before I was working on that project. Whatever it is, really being able to acknowledge yourself is so powerful. And I see that Alyssa is sharing ways to overcome perfectionism that I've shared so far, so you can see some of those in the chat as well. I also want to say that we can find ways of creating relationships where we acknowledge ourselves and we celebrate each other's acknowledgements. So you could have somebody that you reach out to every day and share an acknowledgement of yourself with, and invite them to share one with you. You could do that via text, via email. You could have a quick call with a person in the morning. And it's a shift on accountability, right? Accountability, we often think of having an accountability partner as somebody who keeps us on track. I think it's highly motivating, much more motivating to stay on track by having somebody celebrate in our success and celebrate in what we acknowledge about ourselves. So that's a really powerful tool. As well. I would also say you could even add that in, kind of like we do with the gratitude practice. You could add that into your meals and connections with people, and ask, you can be having a meal and go around at the beginning of the meal and have everybody in the group acknowledge themselves for something. It's very powerful. It's a wonderful way to celebrate. Another way is you might have an acknowledgement board, or as I've invited clients across time to do, is have some sort of box or something where things that people have acknowledged about you that you write down and put in. It could be a jar, it could be a box, but you could pick out something every day and look at it as a way of reminding yourself, because there are times for sure that our confidence dips and we need to be reminded of our beauty, of accepting our full selves and everything that we share. Someone shared that they put it in their planner. I love that. Using your planner as a way is a wonderful way of then going back and seeing what were your goals for the day, or what was your plan for the day, and then what could you acknowledge yourself around how you showed up in those ways is really beautiful. Someone else shared that perfectionism is the lie we tell ourselves, but it's also what we expect others to meet our standards, and then they pay for our lie. So yeah, perfectionism is definitely not just unrealistic standards we put on ourselves, but also what we put on other people. And so over time, as we've been talking about in different episodes, cultivating more compassion and kindness and other things, this letting go of perfectionism is a really powerful way to do that. I have a friend also that when I share a mistake or something that I made, she teases with me and she says, "Oh, well, thank goodness you're relatable." And the fact is that we have an opportunity to give ourselves permission to be relatable and to be authentic and be, true versus some version of ourselves that we're trying to portray. And it gives other people permission too, to see that they've made a mistake and they're not a mistake. It starts to take the shame out of mistake making. The more we acknowledge ourselves, the more we can learn from mistakes that we've made. And the more that we create cultures of acknowledgement, that's really what Leap to Success is all about. You know, whether it's our empowerment circles or our classes, we really focus on the growth. We focus on how people are growing and learning and blossoming, and we can do that both for ourselves, and we can create that in communities to do that more and more. So I'm going to invite you now to place your hand on your heart. Take a deep breath in. And now acknowledge yourself. Acknowledge yourself for something that you're grateful about yourself. Acknowledge something about yourself that's beautiful, as Marsha shared in that beautiful song earlier. Breathe into that. Feel how that feels in your body to actually acknowledge yourself for something positive about yourself. Know that you can come back to this practice throughout the day as a way of letting go of perfectionism and really embracing your authentic truth, your beauty, the bright light you shine in the world. I would love if you would share with us now, what do you acknowledge yourself for in this moment? Because I'd like to speak those out loud. I think they're powerful, they're permission giving, and they're really encouraging for each of us to hear somebody acknowledge something about themselves. It's very inspiring. And I know it's also challenging. So we heard from one that they acknowledge that they're genuinely good. That's so beautiful. Another that I have accomplished amazing things each day. Absolutely. I acknowledge myself for my resilience. I acknowledge myself for my faith and care for others. I acknowledge myself that I'm staying in balance. I acknowledge myself that I'm teachable and approachable. I acknowledge myself that I took time out of my need for perfection to attend this and participate in something for myself. Thank you. It's okay for me to be relatable. Absolutely. I acknowledge myself for taking time to rest and listen to my body. I acknowledge myself that I'm compassionate about helping others. I acknowledge that I took time to acknowledge my feelings. I am missing my loved ones who have passed on. Yes. Yeah, it's really powerful. I know it was, holiday weekends and things can bring that up. And so acknowledging yourself that you supported yourself in whatever way you needed to is really powerful. Another one is I acknowledge I can be gentle with others and with myself. I acknowledge that self-care is not selfish. Yes, that's such a powerful one. Absolutely. Yeah. I acknowledge myself for loving and accepting others as they are. Oh, that's so beautiful. I acknowledge myself that I have raised beautiful, loving children. These are such beautiful acknowledgments. I want you to breathe into all of these powerful, loving statements that I've just read from people, the way that they're acknowledging themselves. I want you to breathe into that and know that this is a practice that we can continue to weave into our days. Another person said, I acknowledge myself for acts of kindness and compassion for myself and others. It's really, really beautiful. This is a way of spreading more love and kindness in the world, because the more that we're filled up with this love and kindness for ourselves, that's what we share out in the world, friends. That's ultimate self-care for stressful times, not just for ourselves, but this radiates out to make the world a better place. I would like to end by sharing some words from Marianne Williamson. These were also shared by Nelson Mandela in his inaugural speech, and we share them on one of our weeks in our Leap to Confidence class, because we feel like it is really, really important to be grounded in this perspective. So I share with you these words. Our deepest fear is that we are not inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, and fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. And there is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine, as children do. We are born to manifest the glory of God that is within us. And it's not just in some of us, it is in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do so. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. Wow, I love those words. They're powerful. Such an important reminder that as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we're liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. And that is truth. In truth, what we're doing when we nurture ourselves. We come home to ourselves, we fill up, we shine brightly, and we invite others to do the same. It's such a beautiful act of kindness for yourself and the world. Thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you so much for sharing so much wisdom, such beautiful acknowledgement. Thank you, Marsha, for sharing your beautiful music with us. I invite you to join us each week on Tuesdays at noon if you want to go live, or you can find us on our YouTube station, on Facebook. Please share with other people. We want to spread as many of these self-care strategies as we can and really have people know that they are loved and held and supported and celebrated and in community, as we know is so important at this time. So thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing you next week.